Hi, I'm Natalie Ledwell and welcome to Not Over, Just Different, a podcast for women of a respectable age facing life's next new chapter. So grab a cup of tea and pour yourself a glass of wine and join me for some deep, real and candid conversations about everything from health, aging gracefully, relationships and how to make the next 50 years even better than the first. Well, hello and welcome to the show this week. Again, I have another amazing special guest with me this week and a girlfriend of mine. Her name is Christina Wise and she's the founder of Wealthy Wealthy. So I'm sure you can guess what our subject is going to be today. So welcome, Christina. How are you?
Thank you. I'm just so happy to be here.
Yeah. I've actually been in one of your presentations, which was very insightful. About how to not just manage our wealth, but to take responsibility for it. I think that, women, well, for me, I was married for 18 years and, my husband had a lot to do with the decisions when it come to, our wealth and how to invest and all that kind of thing. So, when at the age of 45, I'm single and going into my 50s now, it's like, oh, wow, like having to take responsibility and charge of that in a way that's empowering is a little scary. So who are the type of people that you work with that you help with their wealth?
Yeah, really, who I love helping most are high-income women. And for that reason is that we're great at earning income, and we've come a long way as women, right? Like over the last few decades that we really have broken that glass ceiling, especially we women as entrepreneurs. There's no limit to how much money we can make, how much money we are making. So we've become to feel very comfortable in that role, but it's still a little scary to be fully autonomous and empowered to take on this place called investing and building financial freedom. And one thing to know is that there's a difference between income and wealth. And if we're going to build our freedom financially, really be empowered, build that financial security, that financial independence, and that stability in a way. I think there's nothing more empowering to women than owning your money and knowing you've got it, you understand how it operates, you're building it, you know your numbers, you know you're going to be just fine no matter what. And it's standing in a whole different, planted in this place of power that you just get to stand strong when you own your life financially. So I really now want to help women. We've already got the income game figured out, but now how do we move to this wealth game? Again, knowledgeably, understanding, skillfully, and understanding there's nothing to be afraid of. It's actually very simple once we learn the mechanics.
Right. And so how do we do that? There's the regular kind of advice out there about how we should be tithing 10% and all of that. But I'm sure that it's a whole lot more than just that.
Yeah. With what we don't really understand about money is an applied skill. It's applied knowledge. And so what that means is two things, is that to win the money game, we have to understand, how do we know when we've won? What is this money game? What is financial security? What is financial freedom beyond just a feeling? How can it be quantified? And that's what we're not doing. We want this feeling of financial security, like real security, meaning the fear of money is gone. We want the feeling of security. We want the feeling of freedom. We want the feeling of independence. We want that feeling of confidence. But how do we attain that? And how do we know when we've got it? Or how do we know how to get there? So it's great. We understand the feeling we want, but what we don't, the other part of it is what do we need to know and what do we need to apply and what skill do we need to acquire in this money game? And how do we quantify that so we know we're moving in that direction? We're starting to build that as opposed to just keeping our fingers crossed that if we work hard enough and if we make enough money, the money thing's just going to work out. And there's this feeling or this, what I hear from women quite a bit that's a little bit different than men, but it's this feeling of if I just make enough money, I never have to worry about the money thing. I never have to look at it. I never have to spend time with it. I never have to worry about it. As long as I can make enough, I can ignore it. And unfortunately, money doesn't work that way. Income is just one piece of money. There's three parts of money. And I like to talk about them a little bit if we look at our body, we know our body is one integrated, amazing system that allows us to show up every day and do the magical work that we do, especially those that are conscious leaders and making impact and doing these amazing things in the world as women and the gifts that we have. And so our body, for example, is our number one asset. We need a lot of energy. We need to take care of it. We need to pay attention. We need a lot of self-love. We need knowledge. We need applied skill. We need this love of self. So this love of self, they can ripple out and do these amazing things. And so then our body's comprised. We have to take care of this body system so that we have energy and we don't get sick. I know I had my near-death experience because I didn't know that I had to take care of my body a certain way. But if we have, let's say, the brain, the heart, and the gut, there are these three organs that are very independent in nature in the sense that they have very different responsibilities or roles, but they're very integrated at the same time, as we know with like functional and integrative medicine. So money's the same. Money has like three organs, and we have to get good at taking care of all three and really master those, but then they're very highly integrated and they all work as one body system. So the earning game, meaning the income game, is just one piece of money. And that's what I call the earning side. It's how we earn as business owners, and that's understanding how to become a good business person. And part of being a good business person, a powerful business person, is how well you manage your money in your business. So if you earn $1 million in revenue in your business and you spend $1 million on operating your business, how much profit do you have? Mm-hmm. You have zero profit, and that's an unsustainable business. So we understand in business that the game of business on the money side is called the profit game. Well, many times if we have profit from our business, that's just the first concern. Now, let's say we have a 25% profit margin on that $1 million. That means we have $250,000 profit. Now, what do we do with that $250,000? We move it into the second category of money, and that's household finance. We were in business finance. In small businesses, business finance is pretty simple. Now we have to move that $250,000 into household finance. And I teach the concept of become a business mindset in your household and how you build wealth, how much income you build in your business is determined on how well you run and operate your business. Meaning, if you run and operate your business financially prudently and do that well, then you have that $250,000 left over as profit. And that's how well you build income. More revenue, you get better, same profit margins. That means your income's going to go up. But that's just the income game. The wealth building game is all about how well we manage and master our money in our household finance under the same concept about generating profit. So now if we have 25% profit margin, we want the same profit margin in our business. We want the same profit margin in our household business when we treat our household finances like a business. So now we're looking at that profit margin. Same thing. If we ate up that profit margin on our business and expenses, we would have no profit to be able to pay ourselves today. Now, if we use up all that profit margin in our household business, we won't have any money to pay ourselves for tomorrow, because that same 25% profit margin has to be invested over like a 20-year time span to take advantage of this thing called compound interest, which is where you build wealth. And wealth is where the cash flow isn't from your business. It's the cash flow from your assets on your balance sheet then that pay for the cost of your lifestyle and not your hardworking income. And that's how you will win the money game. The money game, the financial freedom game, that ultimately we're all in whether we know it or not, is at some place. Some people call it retirement. There's all these different retirement's an antiquated term, but since it's a term we're familiar with, if there's a day we quote unquote want to officially retire, then whatever that is, that we could be 30 and officially retire. We could be 50. We could be 75, whatever that day is, or that date or that age. I like to replace the word retirement for financial freedom. And financial freedom means that the income from my asset pays for the cost of my lifestyle, so that I have the full freedom over my time that I can choose to work or not. And then I don't have to rely on the day in and day out of having to get up and go earn an income that day. And as our bodies age and over time, there becomes a moment where we want our assets to take over the cost of paying our life instead of our hard work. And the only way to do that, if we don't have a trust fund, or we don't have some money out there waiting for us, or we can't absolutely plan on that we can have an exit from our business is going to pay us 10x on the income or whatever the case is that we can reinvest. The only way to do it is to play this 20-year investing game. So we look at a 2-year time frame for our income game to always be adjusting our numbers and looking at our goals and that type of thing for our businesses. So that's a 2-year game, while at the same time we're in a 20-year game to build freedom, to take advantage, because compound interest takes 20 years. Prudently taking advantage of that. And the way compound interest works, when we do some numbers, and if we don't have a balance sheet, a personal balance sheet, and we've never looked at we've never put some numbers in a compounding calculator, we're probably not building wealth. We're not building our financial freedom, because those two things are required. And so, for example, if I looked out and said 20 years from now, I have a net worth gap, or I have an investment gap of, let's say, $2 million. And $2 million is about $100,000 of, say, income. So if I have a $2 million gap, that means today I need to start putting $2,800 a month away at, let's say, at 10% to have $2 million at the end of 20 years. So it takes 20 years to build $2 million of net worth that should spin off about 100,000 roughly. These are rough numbers of asset income. So if I'm religious about that $2,800 a month, 20 years at 10% interest to build that 2 million, this is how the numbers work. So if you multiply $2,800 times 240 months or 20 years, that's $672,000. What that means is if we just saved that money and didn't take advantage of compound interest, our hard work would only be worth $672,000 at the end of 20 years. But how did we get 2 million when our hard work only produced 672? Where'd the other $1.3 million come from? That's compound interest. It's compound interest. So our money outworked us. It created twice as much money than our hard work created over that 20-year span. So that's how you build wealth. It's all in this compounding effect. And then we can even improve the velocity of that by how trading assets and doing different things we can do when we adopt the skill. Then we can even move that 20 years down if we want to by adopting different practices and more the investing side of the equation. But the takeaway, hopefully the takeaway there is we can't earn or save our way to invest. We can to financial freedom. The only way to build financial freedom is through asset collection and building this net worth that ultimately will pay our bills.
Yeah. I love how you call it a money game, because I think for a lot of us, money seems to be a source of stress or, of worry, or we never have enough, and there's a lot of angst around it. So even just calling it a game helps me to emotionally detach from that, and then go, okay, well, let's look at it strategically. Because you can get caught up so emotionally with, money or lack of money or whatever that is. So I love that you do that. That's fantastic. So I love the compounding, because that makes a ridiculous amount of sense. So when we're talking about investing, what are the type of investments that we should be looking at?
Yeah. So the first thing is that there's all types of investments, and I teach the concept of alternative investing, like alternative medicine in the way. There's conventional medicine, and there's alternative medicine. There's conventional finance, and there's alternative finance. So I teach alternative finance, which means looking at different ways and places to invest. And there's no shortage of places to invest. And it's understanding, prior to even asking the question of where to invest, it's like how to invest.
Right.
What's the skill? What do I need to know? And just like a business plan, it's the exact same thing as we do in business, as we need to do for our finances. Like our wealth building game is like the game of wealth and the business of wealth. So when we're in our business, we have a business strategy and a business plan, and we're working our strategy, we're working our plan. We know, okay, at the end of this year, the end of 2 years, I want to be a $3 million business. And so if I first have to set out that my goal is to be a $3 million revenue business. That's where I'm sitting with my goals. And if I can get a 25% profit margin on that means I'm going to be pulling in, or 30%, that means I'm going to be looking at $1 million take home per year at this. And so now what's my plan and what's my strategy and what am I going to be putting into place to really work and try to hit that profit margin and work to hit that $3 million revenue goal. So the whole business then becomes about hitting the $3 million revenue goal. And then you ask the question, all right, what are the different things we can sell in my business to become and how many units do I need to sell? What do I need to do How much do I need to sell and what do I need to do to hit that $3 million goal? And then that becomes the game. That's the game of business, like all the trials and tribulations and successes and failures and you're cut up. I mean, to be a business owner, entrepreneur, we're just in that all the time. It's like, man, that didn't work. Scratch head. Let's try a different thing. But it's all around hitting that goal and that target. And there'll be different ways, and there's different business models to hit the $3 million, depending on what type of business we're in. But the takeaway again is like we start with that goal and we build the plan to hit the goal. And then we're in the implementation of the plan to hit the goal. And then there's all types of options to be able to do that. And sometimes it's like, I thought book was going to be a really good way to generate revenue, but it didn't do so well. So now I'm going to try something else instead. On the wealth building side, when we think about it as a business, it's the same thing. We have to start with the end in mind. What's the number? What's the goal? Now, if the goal is $2 million, now I need a plan to hit that goal. How much money do I need to put away? How long is it going to take? What are my numbers? How old am I? What date do I want to hit these things? Now I do need to hit a 10% based on my 10-year time frame. And I only have $3,000 to $5,000 to put away right now. So now when we start with those questions and we know those numbers, now we ask the questions, what type of investments are there that can help me hit this target by that amount of time? So many times we're just like, what investments are there? Let me just go over here and abdicate and throw that and give it to a financial planner and still keep my fingers crossed I'm going to hit those numbers. And it just doesn't work that way. We have to start with the target. We have to have a business plan and a strategy, and then we just work the strategy. And ultimately, that's where financial security comes in, is because when you know your number, when you have a plan and a strategy, when you start putting away and start learning, investments are simple once you learn these things and you get to look at different options and figure, well, this one feels good to me. Like I don't invest anything in the stock market because the stock market is scary to me, but I'm really great at real estate investment. I've done very well in other types of alternative investments like life settlements or like different types of funds or investing in my own business or investing in other people's businesses according to some very strict criteria that I've set myself that guide me on what type of investments that I'll put my money into. So when I have the money available, now I'll say, okay, I have 3 different options I might invest in, and I'm going to put my money into this one right now, and then let that investment work, and then I'll accumulate some more money, and then you just do this again over the 20-year game. But the financial security piece comes in when you know you're going to hit your number because you know how compounding works. It's all code. It's all compounding. You can put it in a calculator and see these things. And so now you're like, I'm going to hit my number. So now I can just go play and have fun. I can just worry about my income, grow that, know a certain percentage of that, my profit margin and my household finance is going to be put away. So now I'm building it. So now it takes that financial stress out because you know you're going to be okay. You're going to hit your number barring, some life event or something that happens. It's going to screw everything up.
Right. So what I hear you saying is that when it comes to investing, it's a great idea for us to do some investigation and whatever feels good to us. Like I'm with you. I have invested in some shares and it's never gone well. But I always invested money that I was prepared to lose. So I never kind of, bet the bank. But the only thing I've made money out of is real estate, which I have some. So it's, for me, that's what I like. So it's something that I know. So doing that investigation, figuring out what it is that sort of is suited to you, and then learning what you can about it so that you are making some educated decisions. I know that if you're just throwing money or something sounds amazing and, when you're losing money hand over fist, maybe that's an indication that you want to be doing a little bit more research and making sure that you know what you're doing. So,
yeah, and really where we build wealth is how well we manage our household finance, because the problem with earning high incomes, it makes us feel rich in the sense that if I'm making, let's say, where I grew up very poor. And so when I first made over $100,000, I thought that was so much money. It's like, oh my God, I did it. I couldn't even imagine ever earning $100,000 when I grew up. My family probably never made more than $24,000 a year back in the day. And we grew up very poor. So when I first hit that 100,000 number, but then once I hit my $250,000 number, 100,000 seemed like barely any money at all.
Yeah.
And then once I hit the $500,000, once I hit the $1 million, but So what happens is there's something called Parkinson's Law, and Parkinson's Law says it's two parts on the money side, on the finance side. Part one is that expenses will always rise to match income. So it happens naturally. And when we feel rich is especially those, maybe if we grew up, from humble beginnings, when we earn the first $100,000, what happens? It's like, man, now I'm going to spend $100,000. And that becomes what I get used to is my baseline is to how much my expenses are. Well, then when I get to $250,000, then what happens? Do I stay in the same house, the same car, the same lifestyle? No, my lifestyle goes up to match that income. Then $500,000. Then it naturally happens. So, and in the back of our mind, it's like, okay, the answer to all my money problems is to make more money. And then I'm good at making money. So I think I can just always make money for the rest of my life. And then I'm always going to be fine financially. But again, money doesn't work that way. It has to take advantage of compound interest if there's ever going to be a day when we don't when we don't rely on our body to make the income. We let our money make the income, the compounding effect. So that's Parkinson's Law number one that says expenses will always rise to match income. That means we need to do something to keep that, bumper that and keep that from happening. The second part of Parkinson's Law says what was once a luxury becomes a necessity. So as our lifestyle increases, if our income goes down, we'd like our lifestyle to go down. And for most business owners, there's this variability. Like we have these big ebbs and flows and highs and lows. So what that means is that if our incomes, especially as business owners, if they're variable, our expenses have to match the variability. But usually our expenses are fixed pretty high and our income's going up and down. So that's what gets many people in trouble. And then some debt can come on, or there's no savings, there's no cash. And so to build financial security, we have to have cash, liquidity. And that's having these emergency funds, it's having investments funds, it's having cash available so that when life happens, or if we're slow in a business any month, we don't have to worry about the money because we know we have a year's worth or however much cash is sitting there that we have access to. So cash is real financial security, at least for a short period of time. So we need to know we have the cash to make sure. Like the real stress is meaning every month, I call it high income broke people, that we're making a high income, but 3 months, no income, we're in financial disaster because our bills are so high. So, and then we get accustomed to these lifestyles and we don't like them to go down. So again, that's where that danger is wrapped in. That's why we need cash, and to make sure we're not spending all of our income, to make sure we have these cash funds available to dip into for high expenses, for like vacations or these other things we may save for, as well as having the cash when life happens or the lower income months. Then the financial freedom is the assets, is that future income that's going to come from the assets we're building over time. So we have cash today, which is security, and the freedom for tomorrow. And that's part one is cash, part two is assets, and part three is then we get to spend everything else on our lifestyle. But then that makes sure that the cost of our lifestyle fits into the amount that is left after we have the cash, and after we take out the cash and have that sitting there, and once we take out the amount that we're putting towards our financial future, now we live off everything else. But normally what we do is we save and invest what's left over after our lifestyle, and there's not a lot left over. So we think, if I just go make more money, in the future I'll save, in the future I'll invest when I'm in a better financial situation. And it has to work the exact opposite.
Right. Yeah, because it is hard to go backwards when you're used to flying business class. And all
exactly.
of that.
Because I don't like flying coach anymore, right?
But what is it, and I'm listening to this and it's all landing for me. I'm like, yes, we need to do this. And, and it sounds like I need to have a little discipline. But it also means that I need to have some kind of the B word is normally not in my vocabulary, but like some kind of a budget that I should be following, and some kind of a spreadsheet. Like how could we, draw something like that up? How do we create something like that?
Yeah. And that's the biggest missing piece that I see for almost everyone, all of my clients, is they don't have a system. Like we need business systems, right? Like we have all these operations and business systems to help us hit our numbers, to make sure we run a profitable business. Most people I talk to, they don't have a system. They don't have a financial system. And I don't use the word budget at all. I mean, for businesses and different things, we have budgets, but budgets mean how much we get to spend. And the idea for budgeting, like in this Dave Ramsey and the other way people teach, is budget, like this real restriction, this real scarcity mindset, like, I have to budget. I have to be very frugal. F frugality. Like, I don't like that word. That means I have to be frugal. I can't spend. I have to shrink. This is all about blowout abundance, hitting big numbers. So I don't call it budgeting. I call it bucketing. So there's these 5 buckets, and we have these 5 buckets of cash, and you spend 100% of every dollar, but you spend it by putting in these 5 different buckets. And each of these buckets, these 5 rolls of money, have 5 different rolls. So if we make $100,000 this month, for example, we break up that $100,000 into the different buckets, and those buckets became the spending allowance we get to spend in each of these 5 categories. So if we have a business again and we have 5 different employees, do you have the same employee do the same role? Be like, okay, y'all do the same thing. No, we have 5 different roles to do 5 different things to make sure that we hit these numbers. Well, money has the same thing. There's 5 different roles of money in personal finance that we need to make sure that we split up that full $100,000 and to give it to those 5 different employees, those money employees, so they can just rock out to hit our big numbers. The more income that we make, the more we put into these buckets means the more money we have to spend in each one of those categories. So this is all about abundance. It's all about spending. It's all about growth, but do it very systematically, strategically, planned, with, the discipline, just like we do in our business, but not discipline like, oh my God, if we have this, I have to be this disciplinarian and disciplined person in my business. We're going to hate the business. If we have that same mindset in our personal, we're not going to want to do it. But when we love our business, we love in there, we love creating the strategy, we love looking at the money, we love solving the problems, we love seeing the wins, we love, if things aren't working right, tweaking it and figuring that out. The same thing applies with our money. When we have that same type of mindset and we have the system and we understand that it's just a matter of a little know-how and skill set, and we build the system, money's easy. Then we get to have so much fun in our money. And like you said, it really becomes a money game that we can have a lot of joy in, and we can have this great relationship with our money, this love affair with our money in a very healthy way. That's the same love of our money and how we build it towards financial freedom as we have in our business, when every single day we're working to hit big numbers and make big impact and be in the juice of all the greatness that we're doing. So money is the exact same thing. It's just there's some money in our business, and then there's some money of household finance. And what I like to say is I get a lot more excited at managing my household as a business and building this financial future. It's far more exciting, really, than even my business, because in this other side of my business, my assets are doing most of the hard work and heavy lifting. So again, but now I get 2 love affairs. I get the love affair of my business and the growth and all of that to increase my income. And I get the love affair of watching my money grow outside of my business.
Beautiful. I know. Well, I know that what I'm like around money is I'm an avoider. So I don't want to know about it. I'm just like, if I don't have enough, I'm just going to make some more. So, I don't like to get too deep into it. I'm not looking at the nitty gritty and the minutiae of it. I'm just, I just want to make some more money and have fun. So what are some of the common ways that we as women, the personality traits or the behavior traits that we have around money that's really not helping our case?
Yeah. And that piece is, there's these different pieces, but it's that part's what I call the relationship with money, is that we want to develop a healthy relationship. And it's a relationship where if we were to look at, if we had a significant other or a lover or a spouse, whatever we want to call that person, and let's say in this case, it's a he, and it doesn't matter if it's a he or she, but if it's a he or she, what would happen if we said, oh, I want to have a really great love relationship, but I want to avoid you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to spend time with you. I'm afraid of you. I just want this relationship to work without me putting really any time or attention or intention to this. Just love me anyway. Just give me everything I want, but I want to avoid any conversation. I want to avoid spending time. We probably know that relationship probably isn't going to work too well. And is it going to be any big surprise when our lover winds up in the bed of somebody else? I mean, it would probably not be a big surprise. Well, money operates very similarly. That's where I'm like, if we can have a really healthy love affair, like there can be an unhealthy love that's very codependent and controlling, or maybe that's fear-based in this love relationship. That's not a healthy love relationship. It's probably going to have its own dysfunction, and it's not going to be too rewarding or fulfilling at the end of the day. So money could be the same. We could have a healthy ownership, greedy, type of relationship with our money, about, this control type piece, we can avoid it, which that's the other thing, or we can have this very healthy relationship with our money. To have a healthy relationship, if we don't have this really desire to spend time with our money, with attention, with intention, with this desire that I love you so much, I'm grateful for every dollar of you that comes in. I'm so grateful. You're so good to me. I want to spend time with you. I want to be responsible for every dollar. And for this type of thing, that I want to know where my money's going. I want to be in this intimate relationship with you. That it's amazing what money does. When we don't do that, our money winds up in somebody else's bed, means somebody else's bank account. It's out there in, with I don't know, with credit cards, or with the BMW bank, or with the mortgage bank, or the credit card bank, or the student loan bank, or the furniture bank. It's so our money's in somebody else's bed versus in ours, and it's just going to disappear. And that's where money, like so many people say, I just don't know where all my money goes. I make this great income, and no matter how much money I make, I'm not getting ahead. And that's because that's the way money operates. It's automatically in somebody else's bed if we're not keeping it, really happy and grateful and appreciating. And that's just a money law, that if we're going to build this thing called wealth and freedom, it's required that we have this really healthy relationship. And the other side of that is the divine, the more spiritual side of this is, but we can't own it either. Just like we can't have a relationship like I own my spouse. We have to get out of this ownership of our money, that it's ours temporarily. But if we love, honor, and cherish it in a way, and we're grateful and very responsible, it's amazing how it just grows and how it takes care of us. And if we then or have a fear of losing it, we're going to hold on to it, and it's going to cause a whole different cascade of problems. So it's just like a really healthy love relationship. It's like, I love you. I want to spend time with you. I'm grateful for every day we get to spend together, but I don't own you. I don't control you. You can leave if you want to. But if I'm probably going to really minimize the chances of that happening by living in this place of love and freedom, as opposed to this place of avoidance or control.
Right. And you've just reframed a healthy way to love money. Because normally, when you said you've got to love your money, I felt like a visceral, a physical reaction to that. Because normally we would go, okay, well, if you love money, then you must be greedy. You must be, a miser. You must be, doing things, a bad thing to be able to get the money. But you've just reframed what a healthy relationship and what a healthy love for money really is. And I think that when we can get past, all of our past programs and our beliefs around, money and which, we have all been programmed with. I never thought I had any programs, and I grew up in a country town, one of 8 kids. So, I get it. We get so heavily influenced, about, money from our family and how we grew up. But that's just, the way that you described that was just perfect. Just perfect. So if there was like one thing that, that women who are listening to this now, what is the first thing that you think if they're about to, okay, I'm taking ownership now, I'm going to be in love with my money, I want it to work for me. What is their next step? What is something that they can do?
Yeah. So the first step is it really is the mindset piece, is to do some exercises. And so there's something that I call the language of money. And the language of money is to start listening to yourself, or ask others that you're close to. That when I say the word money, what are some things that I say? So things like, I do these 30-minute free money coaching calls with anybody who wants to have this call with me. And when people have these conversations with me, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to listen more or less for like 20 to 30 minutes and just share with me any thought you have about money, your fears, your anxieties, your anything. Just talk to me about your challenge, anything with money. And so I'm just listening. And what I'm really listening for is within about 2 minutes, I already know their money situation. So I listen for 20, but within 2, I already know their relationship with money and the baggage they haven't cleaned up. So I'll hear things like, I'm terrible with money. I don't like money. I don't want money to control me. I can't afford things, like all this different language. And so one of the first things to do is to start just taking stock of what language do I use? Because that's the way as we know, behaviors always follow beliefs. And so if we have these limiting mindsets about money, these beliefs, all that are brought over from childhood, it's difficult to have a healthy relationship with a spouse or a significant other if we've not cleaned up our own baggage and shit from our own, especially if we grew up in a household where we had dysfunctional, like our parents weren't a really good role model for a healthy relationship. So we bring all this baggage into our into our adult relationship. And then it's like, wow, I need some cleanup to do. So same thing with money, with our childhood as children, with everything, but especially with money, we role model, and these things get like embedded and planted deep within our psyche. So when we grew up hearing things like, I can't afford it, or there's never enough, or go ask your dad, or your dad never pays, doesn't pay child support, or whatever we hear, we're going to automatically carry these things without even knowing it. And then that becomes our language, and our language is a representation of our true beliefs. So that's the thing, is like I say, if we're tending to say things like, oh, I can't afford it, many times it's just replacing that, like, I could afford it. I can pretty much afford whatever, but I'm just going to choose not to spend there because I'm working on really stockpiling cash right now and building some financial security. Or, it's just relanguaging these things so we can get out of this, the belief system that's keeping us trapped, and really open up, like, I can afford whatever I want, but everything's a choice. I'm going to choose this over that. Yeah. So that's one thing. Another thing that I advise people to do to get started is to write their money story. What I call, it's like if you had a lover and it went bad, and then you just got to write a letter and just be truthful. Nobody ever saw it. It's just between you and the piece of paper, but you got to say whatever you wanted to say. Just say it. And it's this really cathartic exercise because it's amazing what comes out. And I do this with my clients. It's one of the first things we do together. And things will come out. We'll be like, I'm scared to death of you, or where have you when I needed you, or you've always meant things greedy, or, you just caused me so many problems. Like, you just cathartic get it all out, and then to ask to rewrite the story. Now, what if you could have this really healthy love with money? What would you be saying instead? And it's like, I love you. I'm so grateful for you. I want to spend more time with you. Wow, I'm really sorry I took you for granted in the past, but now I'm not going to take you for granted anymore. And so then it's like we get to rewrite that story. So that's like step one. Step two then is to understand that money is a skill set. Like, money has laws and principles that must be followed. Like, one thing, you have to spend less than you make, and you really do have to invest. So to learn some of these skills and how to, like the 5 buckets of money, and how to organize and how to systematize your money and how to manage it in a way, because we don't income our way to wealth. The way to wealth truly is in how well we manage it and how healthy that relationship is. So that would be the next thing to do, is just read a book, read some books, get to some understanding, but make it a goal that I want to learn this money thing. Because when we require, it's easy. It's actually, some people say, oh, I'm not good at math, so I don't want to do money thing. Like, money and math money's not math. I mean, the math is all in calculators, that you don't have to be good at math. I'm not good at math, but I'm good at money. So a lot of that is just understand this is all knowledge based. It's acquired skill. All of us can learn it. It's super simple once we get over a fear of it, and once we decide to quit avoiding it. So once that just becomes that desire to get good at it, then you'll find all great ways to actually start getting good with money.
Yeah. Well, listening to this podcast is definitely a great first step. I mean, you've reframed so much for me on how I feel, how I see, how I perceive money, and how I, can build a security for the future. So, if people want to
you're such a great example. I mean, you have such an abundant mindset. I mean, you just go create and build, and there's no limit to what you've done, what you continue to do, and you are abundance. I mean, that's what I love about you. Mm-hmm. So when you learn the skill and the same abundance with the things that we're talking about, it's like blowout. It's the same thing at work. It's just so many people come to me like, I've done this work in every other category of my life except this money thing. For some reason, I've been holding on and not wanting to do it with my money. But it's the same principles. Once we get to the same place with our money, it really becomes magic. Like, it's so abundant everywhere.
Yeah.
In the abundance in the sense that not just, I can go make a lot of money, but man, just money's everywhere. It's in my cash. It's over here, and it just keeps growing. And then it's just the magic and the magical contingency. And then this universal divine relationship we get, because I believe, like anything in the universe, when we have this open and love and we're good at it and we're open to giving and receiving, it takes care of itself. Money's no exception.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anyone wanted to reach out to you or contact you, Christina, how can they do that? Where can we send them?
Yeah. So if anybody, I have a book. So anybody could buy my book if they wanted to. It's called Falling for Money. It's on Amazon like every other book, but I have a free download. So if anybody just wants the digital format, it's fallingformoney.com. So you can send your listeners there. And if anybody does want that 30-minute, what I call a money consulting, coaching call, therapy session, whatever you want to call it, where you just want to go into this a little bit deeper and have any money question you've ever been afraid to ask in a very private, therapeutic type setting, then that's just Christina.com/call. And I love having these conversations. And my favorite thing to do, another thing is we can't get good at things we don't talk about. And there's so much shame attached to money. There's a fear of talking about it.
Yep.
We keep these things, we keep our situations very close and tight. So how can we work through something when we can't talk about it? So I just like to be that place where if there's nowhere else you can talk about it, the first place to start is to get good at something. We have to want to communicate. And sometimes the first thing is saying, I've just effed this up everywhere, but now's the day I want to clean this piece up. So, all right, here it is. Let's go for it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Christina, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a wealth of information. And I really enjoy talking to you. And thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. Now, if you enjoyed this episode and haven't yet subscribed to our podcast, please go ahead and do so on iTunes or Spotify, or go to mindmovies.com/podcast so you don't miss an episode. Now remember, new episodes are released every Monday morning. And this podcast is also brand new, and we'd love to spread the word. So after you've subscribed, be a great girlfriend and pass it on to a friend who will enjoy this too. Until next time, remember, it's not over, just different.